Hello everybody and welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan. Thank you for coming to the channel. We're in front of the 32-gallon long SR Aquaristic Live Bear and White Cloud Mountain minnow tank. Obviously there are other creatures in here, but it started with these long fin white clouds, and after adding a few live bears that I just could not help but purchase, like that gorgeous veal tail, sword tail right there, and this German style sword tail. You know, I was at a swap. Can't go to a fish swap without buying something. It's almost impossible, especially if you have my DNA, a little bit of OCD, a little bit of an addictive nature, maybe a lot of an addictive nature. That's another video. But at this point, a year later, you can see all the juveniles. There's platy fry, swordtail fry, molly fry, leer tail, standard fin, juveniles, big fat adults like that gorgeous black molly. There's a couple of them there sparring with the awesome leer tail. God, they're beautiful. Iconic fish, really. And I couldn't resist adding them to the tank. But once I did, you open Pandora's box, and live bears do what live bears do, which is bear live fish all the time. If they're not pregnant or spawning, they're having babies. They have great proclivity for sure. And a lot of people love them for that. It's a great way to get kids completely infatuated with the hobby. I know my first fish was a black molly, and when I saw the little black fish come literally out of the mother's stomach, I was hooked. That was a long time ago, and so I'm still a big fan. This tank is one of the ones I look at most because my eye always drifts over to here. If you watch my fish room tour, you see where this tank is to the left of my eye line when I'm sitting in the chair. But I'm almost always drawn to it because of all this boisterous and colorful energy. It takes a lot of work to keep this tank healthy with all these fish. Thankfully, I have a great deal of plants to help me with the filtration. And I have two actual filters. One of them is giving me fits. It's the Oase Thermomaster, but you know, the one with the heater in it, the Biomaster. I think that's a 600. Now, I typically love these filters, but that rattling sound, a little bit of it is from the brine shrimp hatchery. But for the last month or so, I've been getting a sort of rattle, and there it goes. Hear that? That's from this particular filter. Now, I have other of that exact filter. I have two more of those, and they're silent as can be. So I've taken that one apart. I've done all I can. It's working pretty well from a filtration point of view, but that noise, in any event, it's affected this video and others previous, and I'll need to address it somehow. And I beg your pardon, but that's from this tank. It's hard to tell how many fish are in this aquarium, almost impossible. Let's focus on some I haven't talked about. I've got a number of Plecostomus, different varieties in here. That looks like a standard pleco. Not the kind that grow real big. It's from the bushy nose or bristle nose family. There's a long fin of the same kind. I think I got these from a breeder as juvenile. There's another one. I think I got these two juveniles when they were about half this size at a swap. I love the long fin with that leopard pattern and the white tips. Just gorgeous. I think this is actually a different species. I don't want to say a peppermint. Plecos are not my expertise. I certainly don't know the L numbers for a lot of these ancestress catfish, but I know I like them as algae eaters, and I think people say they'll disrupt your aquascape. Well, do you see any problem with my rooted plants here? They are just doing fantastic. even the finicky Blixa japonica, when I drop an algae wafer deep into here, those plecos and everything really dives into it, and it hasn't even uprooted them. However, that isn't to say you should put plecos in with whole freshly planted aquascape. You should have let your root growth establish before you put those fish in, because in that case they will constantly be uprooting plants. My mom's having that problem in her tank with the one pleco I gave her, and I put in some new crypts, and every day she says, you need to come over and replant them. There's a hill stream loach. I've got several in this tank. It's attacking along with that black molly and algae wafer. And there's a baby tuxedo platy right there. Look at how vivid the red is. Unbelievable. And there's probably a cousin or a parent, and there's a molly. Those are mollies, the orangey red fish. There's something, it's pretty easy to tell a platy from a molly, especially when you're in the hobby a few minutes. You just start to know intuitively, even, you know, if the color morph isn't a dead giveaway, and it might not be, you start to be able to tell differences in the body type. I had originally wanted this tank to be a species only for white cloud mountain minnows, and I had a nice sort of rocky and wood riverscape going, but all that has changed, and that's the thing. An aquarium is a work in progress from day one to the day you take it down. It's never done. It's never a finite aquascape, and if you don't constantly pull it apart and redo the scape, it's gonna change right before your eyes anyway. This is no longer a river, boulder riverscape, not even close. It's a lushly planted aquarium, and it's no longer a white cloud mountain pseudo biotope. It's just an overrun community tank. I mentioned I have 2 filters. I should say what the other one is. Hidden behind all that pothos is Oase's smallest canister. You can actually hang it on the back. You can't even see it. It's like the 60, the Filto Smart 60. And it's a nifty little filter. I wouldn't use it for probably anything by itself except for a small nano cube or something like that. But it sucks in water. I have biomedia and a pre-filter, and it adds a little flow down here. The outflow is actually amidst that water sprite, and I know it's still putting out water because I check. If it was just stagnant and the motor was running, hey, hello, and the motor was running and it was completely clogged, that would eventually create a failure, and the motor would die, or some sort of minor catastrophe would occur involving flooding or a backup, but none of that's happened, and it's a pretty reliable supplemental filter. It's hidden beneath all these wonderful emerged plants. 2 kinds of pothos there, probably a 3rd plant in there, an arrow plant behind it. That's grown all the way up into the 2nd tier, and I have to back it out like I'm backing up like a U-Haul van. I have to back it out and under to take it to the sink and water it. I've got a few other $5.99 plants from Home Depot just rounding out the side of this aquarium. And as I said, water sprite doing really well back there is a pseudo stem plant. It's mostly just propped up at the bottom. There are roots going into the bottom, but it's sort of a floater that's stuck in the corner, and I'm constantly pulling big hunks of it out. This is a crypticorn forest here. I'm pulling a lot of those out. I brought some to my mother, I mentioned that earlier. And then there's that Blixa japonica, and then up in where the rocks and wood used to be able to be seen, you see the epiphytes, Anubias primarily at this point, and pogostem and octopus is that bunch back there. There's a bit of Hygrophila pinnata, and then some random stems here. Sterigen repens that's grown 6 inches tall, and then I forget the name of that stem. It's the last. I only have a couple of those stem tops left. There's one there. I found that when I was growing them in another aquarium, they look great, but the bottom always died, and all these mini leaves would constantly be falling off and blowing around in the aquarium. So I couldn't bear to end the species presence in my fish room, but I use it now as an accent. And now that I pointed it out, you can see those two right there. They're not lost. Even though there's a ton of life in here, I don't think anything gets lost. It's my organized chaos. So there is method to all this madness, even though it's been evolving and changing, and I can't control all the variables like the birth of fish, or which plant is going to begin to dominate and which one is going to recede. But I get to observe with curiosity and fascination as that happens. I'm going to move up a little bit and look down. Brazilian pennywort is this floating plant here, and per my last statement, it's become more of a dominant floating plant versus the water lettuce or frogbit. I keep them both in here, but right now I'm just loving the shape and the growth structure of the Brazilian pennywort, and so I'm letting it do its thing, and maybe at the expense of some of this frogbit, of which I have plenty all over my fish room. You see the jungle veil, it's rooted back there, and then this is all just the top growth along the horizontal, which was the intent back when it was planted. And it also created a green wall of vallisneria in the back, so I don't have to worry about looking at whatever's behind the aquarium, and I don't need a background. I mean, look at that population. It's crazy, but what am I gonna do? Catch them and, you know, take adults and juveniles to different fish? It's a lot of effort if I wanted, especially during the winter time in Chicago, to be driving a handful of fish here and there. So I've opted to just try to keep the tank at maximum health, despite a strong population. And I already told you my criteria, or the best ways for me to achieve that success is heavy maintenance and tons of plants, but never slacking in the water changes or filter maintenance or pruning or letting anything dead or decaying remain in this aquarium to the best of my abilities. All right, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful holiday, rest of your holidays, and a great new year. You'll be hearing from me and seeing another video before that time, but just to show my appreciation and gratitude, let me say right now, have the most Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. And as always, keep your hands in the tank, and ciao for now.